Welcome to your personalized deep dive. We're diving into some really fascinating concepts today. The sources you gave us talk about downloaded understanding, Reiki remote viewing, and even things like tarot and Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance.
Yeah, it's a really intriguing mix. And, by the end of this deep dive, I think you'll start to see how all of these concepts, they might seem totally separate at first glance, but they actually connect in some pretty interesting ways.
Okay, well, I am ready to have my mind blown. So, where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with this idea of downloaded understanding that you mentioned. It's that feeling when you suddenly grasp a concept or a situation completely, almost as if the knowledge was well downloaded right into your brain.
Oh yeah, I've definitely experienced that before. It's like suddenly understanding something on a much deeper level without going through, the usual step-by-step learning process. It's almost like an aha moment, but like on steroids or something.
Exactly. And one of the sources you gave us suggests that this kind of knowing might be coming from an internal source, or even from like a collective field of information.
Whoa, okay, collective field of information. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Are we talking about like psychic powers here?
Not necessarily psychic powers, but the idea isn't as far out as it might seem at first. One of your sources talks about this theory by Rupert Sheldrake. It's called morphic resonance, and it suggests that there's a kind of collective memory field that influences how similar systems behave and learn.
Okay, can you break that down for me a little bit? What do you mean by like similar systems and a collective memory?
Okay, so think of it like this. Imagine that you're learning how to ride a bike. According to Sheldrake's theory, as more and more people learn to ride bikes, it actually becomes easier for others to learn too, because this sort of morphic field for bike riding is created and it's getting stronger all the time. It's almost like an invisible template that makes it easier for other people to pick it up.
So it's kind of like the more people who learn something or who know something, the more accessible that knowledge becomes for everyone else. Almost like a well-worn path, in the woods. The more people walk on it, the easier it is to follow.
That's a great analogy. And this theory could actually explain how that downloaded understanding works. You're kind of tapping into this collective field and accessing the knowledge that's already there.
Okay, yeah, that is pretty mind-blowing. But how does that connect to things like Reiki and intuition?
Well, think of Reiki as a practice that helps you tune in to these subtle energy fields. One of your sources describes Reiki as a Japanese technique for energy healing. And it can amplify how sensitive you are to energy, and it deepens your connection to intuitive knowledge.
So it's not just about healing physical problems. Reiki can help you develop your intuition.
Exactly. A key principle of Reiki is all about balance and harmony within your energy system. And the sources suggest that when your energy is balanced and it's flowing freely, you become way more open to these intuitive insights.
It's like clearing out all the static so you can hear the whispers of your intuition more clearly.
Exactly. And the sources explain that Reiki attunements, these are a key part of the training. They're said to open up energy channels in your body, making you way more sensitive to subtle energies.
Okay, so what are those energy channels exactly, and how do they get opened during an attunement?
So different Reiki traditions might have different ways of explaining it, but essentially these channels, they're often called meridians in Eastern medicine, and they're like these pathways for energy to flow throughout your body. Reiki attunements are a series of rituals that are done by a Reiki master, and they're said to clear and activate these energy pathways, making energy flow more freely. And this heightened sensitivity to energy, according to your sources, it can make you more aware of subtle information that you wouldn't normally perceive.
Interesting. So opening up these energy channels through Reiki could make you more receptive to intuitive information. But what about things like remote viewing and tarot? Do those practices also tap into this energy field that we've been talking about?
That's where it gets even more interesting. The sources that you provided suggest that both remote viewing and tarot, they both involve accessing information that's beyond your immediate senses.
So with remote viewing, someone is trying to see a place or an event that they aren't actually at physically. And with tarot, someone's interpreting those cards to get insight into a situation. How could that possibly be related to energy fields?
Well, one of your sources describes remote viewing as a practice where the viewer tunes in to a target and starts to get information as impressions, feelings, or even visual fragments forming this whole story about the target. And with tarot, especially when the reader goes beyond those traditional meanings of the cards, it can also involve getting these intuitive downloads, often in this symbolic, story-like way.
So both practices involve receiving information that goes beyond the five senses and
Yeah.
possibly through this energetic field that we've been talking about. That's pretty wild.
It is, and it really makes you wonder, what we even consider to be knowledge and how we access it. If these practices really do tap into information that's beyond our ordinary perception, does that mean that our current understanding of knowledge is kind of limited?
That is a really thought-provoking question. It makes you wonder what other ways of knowing might be out there that we haven't even considered yet.
Right, and I think that's one of the most exciting things about exploring these topics. It opens up this world of possibilities that really challenge all of our assumptions about reality and how we perceive it.
So we've been talking about how intuition might work on like an energetic level, but I'm curious about how someone can actually develop their intuition. Is it something that you're just born with, or can you learn it?
That's a really common question, and the sources you provided suggest that we all have intuitive potential, but a lot of times it needs to be cultivated and kind of nurtured.
So it's like a muscle that needs to be exercised.
Exactly. And one of the most effective ways to develop that intuition is through mindfulness and meditation.
Okay, meditation, got it. What else?
Energy work like Reiki can also be beneficial because it helps balance out your energy system and it increases your sensitivity to subtle energy. And journaling can be a really powerful tool too. One of the sources recommends writing down your dreams, any intuitive insights you have, and any synchronicities or aha moments that you experience. This can help you recognize patterns and really strengthen that connection to your intuition.
So it's about paying attention to those subtle nudges and insights that we often just dismiss or overlook.
Exactly. The more you pay attention to those whispers of intuition, the louder and clearer they're going to become. But as you start to develop your intuition, it's important to be able to tell the difference between those genuine intuitive insights and just your imagination or wishful thinking.
Right. Okay, how can you even tell the difference? That seems like it could be kind of tricky.
It can be, but one of your sources offers some really helpful tips. First, pay attention to where the information is coming from. Does it feel different from your regular thoughts? Like a sudden knowing or a really strong gut feeling that you just can't deny?
So it's a different quality of thought, almost like it's coming from somewhere else.
Yes. And look for clarity. Intuitive insights are usually really clear and concise, even if they're symbolic. And watch out for repeating messages, ones that just keep popping up in different ways. They might be trying to tell you something important.
Okay, clarity and repeating messages.
Yeah.
Got it. What about the emotional side of things? Does intuition have a particular feeling attached to it?
A lot of times, yes. Genuine intuition can have this strong emotional charge or a sense of knowing that's different from just everyday emotions. It might feel really deeply resonant or even a little unsettling depending on what the message is.
Like a knowing that goes beyond logic or reason.
Exactly. And always check in with yourself and ask, does this information align with my inner truth and my values? If something just feels off or misaligned, it could be your imagination or wishful thinking kind of taking over.
So it's a gut check. Does it resonate with who you are at your core?
Exactly. And finally, if it makes sense, try to test your intuition. See if things actually unfold the way that you felt they would. This can really help you build that discernment over time.
It's like learning to trust that inner compass more and more. But if we start tapping into this deeper well of intuition, what are the ethical considerations when it comes to sharing those insights with other people?
That's a really important point. Just because you have an intuitive feeling about someone doesn't mean that you should just blurt it out. One of your sources really stresses how important consent is. Always ask someone before you share intuitive information with them. Respect their boundaries and their right to choose what they want to know. Remember, it's their journey, not yours.
That makes sense. You shouldn't force your insights on anyone. What else should we keep in mind?
Discernment, share information that's actually helpful and constructive. Try to avoid, fear-mongering or making predictions about the future. Your insights are meant to empower people, not to scare them.
Right. That's so important. It's not about being a fortune teller. Even if you have an intuition about something that might be negative, it's important to share it in a way that's sensitive and compassionate. Anything else?
Empowerment. Your goal should be to help people trust their own intuition, not to become dependent on yours. Always remind people that they have their own inner guidance and that they can learn to trust it too.
So it's not about making them rely on you like some kind of oracle. It's more about guiding them to connect with their own inner wisdom.
Exactly. And finally, just remember that your interpretations are subjective and they might not always be accurate. Stay humble, be open to feedback, and always remember that having multiple perspectives can really enrich everyone's understanding.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. We talked about what intuition is, how it might actually work, how to develop it, and even how to share it responsibly. I'm curious about how Reiki fits into this bigger picture, especially when it comes to things like remote viewing or tarot.
That's a great question, and one of your sources actually talks about that directly. It suggests that Reiki can be a really powerful foundation for a lot of other intuitive practices. It's like setting up a strong base camp before you go climb a mountain.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So how does Reiki act as that base camp?
Well, you can use Reiki to prepare energetically before you do something like remote viewing or a tarot reading.
So you're using Reiki to cleanse and balance your energy before you dive into those other practices.
Exactly. This can help you be more receptive and clear. It's like tuning an instrument before you play it. Reiki can also be used for setting intentions. You can use Reiki symbols or even call on Reiki energy to help create a really sacred space for your practice, and you can fill it with peace and harmony.
So it's like creating this dedicated space for those intuitive energies to flow more easily.
Exactly. And during those practices, you can actually invite Reiki energy to flow through you to enhance your intuition and your connection to, let's say, higher guidance.
So it's like having this constant support system.
Yeah.
An energetic boost for your intuitive work.
That's a great way to put it. And after your practice, Reiki can help clear out any leftover energies or any emotional attachments from the session. This can help you feel more grounded and integrated after what can be a pretty intense experience.
So it's like taking an energetic shower after a deep dive into that intuitive realm.
I love that. You're really getting the idea of how Reiki can be integrated with all sorts of other practices. And I think this brings us to a really fascinating concept that one of your sources mentions. It's called the Roman Empire metaphor. Have you ever heard of this?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I have.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm not totally sure what it means.
Well, it's a way to describe just how vast and complex the knowledge is in these practices. The source compares it to the Roman Empire. All those layers of government, all those diverse cultures, and its long and complicated history. Just like uncovering all the different regions and cultures within a giant empire. These practices have layers of understanding different techniques and applications.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's like each practice is a different province in this huge empire of consciousness with its own customs and discoveries waiting to be made.
Exactly. It speaks to just how vast it is and how much potential there is for ongoing exploration. Each time you dig a little deeper, you uncover new layers, new insights, and new connections.
Wow, that's a powerful way to think about it. It's not just a set of techniques. It's this whole world of knowledge and experience that's waiting to be explored.
And if we take this metaphor a little further, it makes us think about our own inner empire of consciousness. It suggests that we all have this depth and this complexity, this potential to grow and discover things within us.
It's like we each have our own inner Roman Empire just waiting to be explored. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about learning a technique like Reiki or remote viewing. It's about exploring this vast landscape of our own consciousness and uncovering all that potential that we have inside.
You got it. It's a very personal journey, a lifelong exploration of our own inner empire. And that, I think, is where true empowerment and transformation really come from.
This has been amazing so far. We've covered so much already. Downloaded understanding Reiki, remote viewing, taromorphic resonance, even that Roman Empire metaphor. What if we take this a step further and just entertain the possibility that some of these ideas, they might seem a little out there right now, but what if they become common knowledge in the future?
That's an interesting thought.
Like, what if the things that we consider fringe science today, like morphic resonance, or the idea that our consciousness can influence reality, what if those become accepted scientific principles? What if our whole understanding of the universe shifts so much that these concepts become just as normal as gravity or electricity?
That would definitely change our whole understanding of ourselves and the world around us, but it's not totally impossible. Throughout history, there have been lots of ideas that were once seen as radical or fringe, and they eventually became part of mainstream science.
That's true. Think about the concept of germs. It wasn't that long ago that people thought diseases were caused by bad air or evil spirits. Now we know that microscopic organisms are the reason we get sick.
Exactly. And even the idea that the Earth goes around the sun was really controversial back in the day. So yeah, it's not completely out of the question that our understanding of consciousness and how it affects the universe could go through a similar kind of transformation.
That's a hopeful thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it shows how important it is to keep an open mind and be willing to explore ideas that challenge what we think we know.
I completely agree. It's by being open-minded and curious that we can keep expanding our knowledge and evolving how we understand the universe and our place in it.
This has been so thought-provoking already. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into these concepts as we keep going in this deep dive.
Me too. I think you're going to be amazed by what we uncover as we continue to explore this really interesting topic. As we were talking about the possibility of these fringe ideas becoming mainstream knowledge, it really made me think about how our concept of knowledge is always changing.
Yeah, I see what you mean. What we consider knowledge is often shaped by the tools and the ways of thinking that we have at any given time.
Exactly. And as those tools change, so do the boundaries of what we think is even possible. Just imagine in the future, we might have instruments that can actually measure and quantify these subtle energies that we've been talking about.
That would be incredible. It could really help bridge the gap between, science and spirituality and lead to a much better understanding of how it all works.
It really is exciting to think about. But for now, we have the wisdom of people who have been exploring these areas for a long time through practices like Reiki remote viewing and tarot. Their experiences can give us really valuable insights, even without fancy scientific instruments.
Speaking of Reiki, I'm really interested in those Reiki symbols that you mentioned earlier. The sources you gave me talk about using them to cleanse energy, set intentions, create sacred spaces. But one source even mentions putting specific intentions into the symbols themselves. I gotta say, that sounds kind of like magic to me.
Yeah. It might sound like magic, but it actually lines up with a really core principle in a lot of spiritual traditions. The idea that energy follows intention. Your thoughts and intentions, when you focus them, they can actually shape the energy that you're working with.
So are you saying that by focusing your intention on a Reiki symbol, you can actually give it a specific purpose or energy? How does that even work?
It probably varies depending on who's doing it and what their training is like. But from what I've read in your sources, it usually involves meditation, visualization, and a really deep connection to the energy of that symbol. It's almost like you're charging it up with a particular purpose.
So it's not just about drawing the symbol, it's about connecting with it on an energetic level.
Yeah.
Is that kind of similar to the downloaded understanding we were talking about earlier? Could these symbols that have these intentions encoded in them, could they be like a trigger for that type of intuitive download?
That's a great connection. Yeah, it's possible that the symbol, because it's filled with a specific intention, could act like a key. It's unlocking knowledge or insights that are related to that intention.
That's fascinating. It's like using a specific search term to find exactly what you're looking for in this giant library of knowledge.
Exactly. But with all that potential power comes responsibility. We need to use these tools ethically. It's not about trying to manipulate energy for your own personal gain. It's about aligning with a higher purpose and using these tools for things like healing growth and understanding.
That's a really important point. It makes me think about something that's been coming up a lot in this deep dive, that idea of interconnectedness.
Yeah, for sure. Several of your sources, especially when they're talking about morphic resonance and even quantum entanglement, they really emphasize that we're not just isolated individuals. We're all part of this much bigger web of energy and consciousness.
Right. Like our thoughts, our intentions, even our actions, they can all ripple out and have an effect on the world around us. We're all connected in ways that we might not even fully grasp yet.
Exactly. And as we explore and develop our intuition, we start to become more aware of these connections and all the responsibility that comes with them.
It's like realizing that we're all threads in this one big tapestry, each of us contributing to the overall pattern. But then that raises a question. If we're all connected, what kind of impact could a collective shift in consciousness have?
That is a really profound question. Just imagine a world where intuition is valued just as much as logic, where energy work is part of healthcare, and where education systems actually help people develop their intuition along with their intellect.
Wow, that would be a very different world. It almost feels like we're talking about a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Moving away from this purely materialistic view of the world.
Exactly. It's about embracing a more holistic understanding of reality, one that honors both what we can see and what we can't see, the scientific and the spiritual. And I really believe this shift is already happening.
I can see that. There's definitely more and more interest in things like mindfulness and energy healing and alternative approaches to well-being. People are looking for something more than just the material world.
They are. They're searching for meaning connection and a deeper understanding of, who they are and why they're here. And these practices give them a way to explore those questions, to connect with their inner wisdom and tap into all that amazing potential that's inside every single one of us.
It's like we're remembering something that we've forgotten. Reclaiming our true nature as these intuitive, energetic beings.
That's a beautiful way to put it. But it's important to remember that this change won't happen overnight. There will be resistance and skepticism, and it might even be uncomfortable at times.
That makes sense. Challenging those deeply held beliefs can get messy and even a bit scary, but the potential benefits are huge. If we can shift our consciousness towards a more holistic understanding of reality, think about all the amazing things that could happen. We could create a world that's more in line with our best values.
Absolutely. It would be a whole new frontier, a new era of human evolution where things like intuition, energy, and consciousness are at the forefront. As exciting as that sounds, it also takes a lot of courage, commitment, and willingness to embrace the unknown.
It's like we're pioneers, exploring a whole new territory, challenging the way things are, and creating a future that reflects our highest potential.
I love that analogy. But we also need to remember that this journey isn't just about intuition and energy work. It's about recognizing and respecting all the different ways that humans can access knowledge and understanding.
Right. We can't just assume that science is the only valid way to know things.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom in indigenous cultures, in our dreams, and stories passed down through generations, and in the deep self-reflection that comes from connecting with nature.
You're so right. Each of these ways of knowing gives us a unique perspective, a different lens to look at the world through. And just like a tapestry is more beautiful because of all its different threads, our collective understanding is richer when we embrace a variety of perspectives.
It's like acknowledging that knowledge isn't just stuck in textbooks and labs. It's woven into the fabric of human experience. We can find it in art, music, storytelling rituals, even in our everyday interactions with each other and the natural world.
Exactly. And if we only rely on science, it can actually limit us. Science is great for figuring out the physical world, but it can't explain everything. There are whole realms of experience, ways of knowing that are beyond what science can measure.
Yeah, like science can tell us how the brain works, but it can't completely explain what it's like to be conscious. We can't measure the feeling of awe when you look up at the stars, or the deep knowing that comes from intuition.
You're right. If we just ignore these experiences because they can't be scientifically proven, it would be like saying music doesn't exist just because we can't see the sound waves. It's a very limited view that misses out on all the richness and complexity of being human.
It's like trying to fit the whole ocean into a teacup. Science is a valuable tool, but it's not the only tool. It's definitely not the only way to find truth or understanding.
Totally agree. We need to broaden our definition of knowledge to include all the wisdom that comes from intuition, from personal experience, from deep inside our own consciousness.
That's where the real magic happens. That's where we get those transformative insights.
Yeah.
It's in that space where science and spirituality, logic and intuition, what we can see and what we can't see, all come together.
You said it perfectly. That merging of different perspectives is how we can go beyond the limits of any one way of knowing and really embrace a holistic understanding of ourselves and the universe.
This conversation has been so enriching. It feels like we've been weaving together all these different ideas, connecting science, spirituality, philosophy, and personal experience.
It has been a wonderful journey, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling that same sense of wonder and possibility. That's what this is all about, exploring, questioning, expanding our awareness, and embracing the mystery and wonder of existence.
It really is. This deep dive has been an incredible journey so far, and I'm so excited to see where it takes us in the final part. As we've been talking about all these different ways of knowing, it's really made me think about how much our society values logic and reason.
It's true. We tend to focus on what we can see and measure, and anything that can't be easily explained or scientifically proven gets kind of pushed aside.
But like we've been exploring in this deep dive, there's a whole other world of knowledge and understanding that goes beyond those five senses.
Absolutely. And when we tap into that, when we develop our intuition and embrace how connected everything is, it can really change our everyday lives.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. How does embracing intuition and working with energy practically change how we live and how we interact with the world around us?
Well, on a personal level, developing your intuition can help you become more self-aware. You start to tune into that inner guidance, those gut feelings, and that can lead to a greater sense of purpose and meaning in your life.
So it's not just about like having psychic visions or predicting the future. It's about making choices that feel right to you deep down.
Exactly. Intuition can help you with decisions big and small. It can make your relationships stronger because you're more in tune with what other people need and how they're feeling. And it can even spark creativity and help you solve problems because you're accessing insights that you wouldn't get through pure logic.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like when you trust your intuition, you're opening yourself up to all this information and guidance that can help you live a more fulfilling life.
You got it. And when you start living in a way that aligns with your intuition, you often start to notice more synchronicity. The right people and opportunities just seem to show up at the perfect time. It's like the universe is working with you to help you along your path.
That's amazing. But what about on a larger scale? What if more people started tapping into their intuition and recognizing how interconnected we all are?
Just imagine a world where intuition was just as important as logic and reasoning. Imagine hospitals that use energy healing and schools that teach kids how to develop their intuition alongside all the other subjects. It could lead to a much kinder, more compassionate, and connected world.
Wow, that's a beautiful vision. It feels like we're talking about a totally new way of seeing things, a shift towards a way of being in the world that's more whole and balanced.
Exactly. It's about moving away from just focusing on the material world and recognizing the power of consciousness, the way everything is connected, and the incredible wisdom that each of us has inside.
It seems like this shift in consciousness is already starting to happen. We see it in how popular things like mindfulness are becoming, how more people are accepting alternative healing, and this general yearning for a life that has more meaning and purpose.
Absolutely. People want more than just stuff. They want to feel connected. They want their lives to mean something, and they want to understand who they are and why they're here. These ancient practices, this exploration of intuition and energy, give them a way to do that.
It's like we're rediscovering something we've forgotten, reclaiming what it means to be these intuitive, energetic beings.
So true. But it's important to remember that this shift isn't going to happen overnight. There will be challenges in people who resist it as we start to question those long-held beliefs and move outside our comfort zones.
I can see that change can be unsettling. And it makes sense that people would be skeptical of anything that shakes up their worldview.
But the possibilities are just so incredible. As we open our minds to a bigger view of ourselves and the universe, we open ourselves up to things we might never have dreamed of: healing, growth, deeper connection, and creating a world that reflects the best of humanity.
It's like we're stepping into uncharted territory. A whole new era for humans. It's exciting and maybe a little scary all at the same time.
You're exactly right. It takes courage and dedication to venture into this new territory, to embrace the unknown and trust that we're being guided towards a more fulfilling way of being.
As we wrap up this amazing deep dive, is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yes. I want to remind everyone that exploring intuition and energy isn't about reaching some final destination or becoming enlightened. It's a journey of discovery, a process of growing and expanding your awareness. It's about embracing the mystery and wonder of life and letting your inner wisdom guide you.
That's a beautiful thought. It's not about becoming some kind of psychic superstar. It's about learning to listen to your intuition, that energy that connects us to everything. It's about trusting the journey and being open to new experiences.
Absolutely. And remember, there's no one right way to do this. Find what feels right for you. Approach it with curiosity and an open heart and see where it takes you.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey for me. We've explored so many amazing concepts, and what really stands out is how they're all connected. It's like we've been weaving together this tapestry of understanding about consciousness, energy, and what reality truly is.
It's been a joy to explore all of this with you, and I hope our listeners have felt that same sense of wonder and possibility.
I'm sure they have. As we close out this deep dive, I want to encourage everyone listening to keep exploring these ideas for themselves. Take what speaks to you. Experiment with different practices. Trust your gut and see where it leads you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. May your journey be filled with insights, joy, and a deep connection to the infinite potential within you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep trusting your intuition. It's the compass that will always lead you home.